Hey everybody, it's Chris here. Before we start the show, just a quick shout out to our sponsors. Taco Circus at the corner of Schiller and Morganford in South St. Louis. Taco Circus, Taco Circus, Taco Circus, Taco Circus, Taco Circus, Taco Circus. Schiller and Morganford, South St. Louis. It's a taco, it's a circus, it's Taco Circus. Until they move, then they're still Taco Circus, but they're not at the corner of Schiller and Morganford. But for now, that's what they are. Open every day but Tuesday. Fortune Teller Bar over in the Cherokee Business District. Stop and get yourself a house-made cocktail. It's a bar-made cocktail. I don't know why I would call it homemade. You don't live there. House-made cocktail with our in-house crafted bitters, just made right there in the bitters lab when you walk in off to the left. There's food. There's drink. You never need to leave unless it's to head over to Maplewood on Sunday and Saturday. Some people say Saturday and Sunday, but that is chronologically incorrect. Sunday and Saturday, Metal Brunch, the best brunch in town, over at the Crow's Nest in downtown Maplewood, 7336 Manchester, longtime sponsor of the show. Those are the sponsors. I don't know. I guess we could start the show.
Warning. Society has deemed a number of conversation topics as rude to discuss in polite company. Luckily, those rules don't apply here. Welcome to Impolite Company. The host of Impolite Company, Chris Sear.
I've been traveling for a comedy, been out of town performing, and so it's hard to record episodes when you're on the road. It's like I could do them in my hotel room, but that's a hard environment. I mean, I've recorded episodes on the road. I've recorded episodes in closets, in bars. And bars is fine because when you record and there's background noise, it's ambient, right? It's like, oh, look, they're having a conversation in the 1970s at the Key Club or whatever. And that's fine for that. But when you're in a hotel room, it's still ambient. But it's the wrong ambience. Like all that background noise. You can hear the ice machine down the hall. You can hear the AC unit. You can kind of hear the AC unit here, but not a lot, so it's a little better. But in a hotel, it kicks in whenever it wants, and it's not always under your control. Like if you've ever stayed in a hotel and you want to put that temperature down to 32 degrees, you know for a fact you can't always do it. You try. One of my favorite hotels over here, we're going to be putting some comedy shows up at. One of my favorite hotels, I stay in those rooms occasionally to do hallucinogens, hypothetically. And there's a thermostat, so we always try to adjust that lower than we can, but it's actually controlled off-site, which makes no goddamn sense. I mean, it makes sense for an office building. If you have an office building, you want your HVAC to be controlled off-site because your employees, they don't care about things like energy conservation and stuff like that. They don't care about your electric bill. They don't care about your air conditioning bill where you got to pay for every bit of air that goes through a vent or something, whatever makes you ration air conditioning like the monster you are, instead of letting people just cool the office down to an appropriate temperature. Look, we're all dying in offices anyway. We might as well make them as cold as the morgue, which is an urban legend. I think morgues are actually kept at the same temperature as every other room in the hospital. Like there are refrigerators where you put bodies. That's what you want your office to be like. Not necessarily the morgue, but the refrigerator they put the body at. Like stop us from dying faster. And the way you do that is to cool us down. Keep us on ice. But anyway, like so for an office it makes sense though, because your employees will constantly fight over that. And they're going to break the thermostat. They're going to break your furnace. They're going to break your air conditioner because it's not meant to be kicked on and off at the whim of every idiot that works in accounting. Right? Like that's just, it's how it's not made to withstand that. So you hire a company off-site who basically anytime an employee wants to change the temperature of the office, they send a request to that company. That company ignores it and then pretends they did something. And then employees, like, they're generally stupid. Like, we are all sheep, right? Like, we are not, we're conditioned to where when that off-site temperature management company tells us, oh, hey, we just adjusted the temperature in your office down to about 69 degrees, so it should be comfortable any minute. We are conditioned to believe, well, they're looking out for me. And then through some psychosomatic response, 10 minutes later, we're all like, oh, man, it's a little chilly in here. The temperature hasn't changed. It's the same fucking temperature it was a minute ago, man. But we're conditioned to where we say it. Like, if the placebo effect applies to HVAC systems, that's what's happening. But hotels do this too sometimes. And so that hotel does. Like, you adjust it, and it doesn't matter. Like, they sit there, and they're like, nah, no, room 308 does not need to be 62 degrees. That is an inappropriate use of our resources. So they change that. Well, now, imagine that you're trying to record in that kind of system where you can't even turn the AC on and off because it's being controlled. So, like, you'll be in the middle of some, like, deep, dark monologue, and then I was standing in the parking lot, and the moon shone down on me as I held the bottle of whiskey in my hand, thinking, no, tonight was not the day I would start drinking again. Today was the day I would start living again. But in the middle of that, you would be like, today was the day. I'm sorry to do that to you if you're listening in your car. That was rude of me. I should have announced that the HVAC system was about to kick in. But that's what happens when you're recording. It's a pain in the neck. And don't get me wrong. Like, again, I've recorded in the car. That's easier. That's a monotonous background hum. If you listen to Sam Lyons, if you're not sure who you should know who I mean when I say Sam. But there are other Sams and way cooler Sams. So, I mean, Sam's fine, I guess. But if you've been listening to Sam's episodes the last couple of weeks, he recorded a conversation in his car with Lucas Henderleiter, and they're fine. Like, it's a car. You know it's a car, though. So, although I always think it's weird, like, I recorded in my car, so I had this issue. Man, whatever rig Seinfeld uses for his podcast must be like $1 million. Or his video show, whatever you call that thing. It's a video cast. Well, now it's a show, right? Like, now it's like a Netflix show. So fuck them. Like, it's not even punk rock anymore. Jerry, get back on the DIY train. But anyway, no, the mics they use for that car ride are great. And also, you know, they're sitting there sound engineering the whole thing so they can edit out the background noise. Like, they just set that as their bass and you don't even hear it. But I don't mind the background noise of a car if you know someone's in a car. It makes it sound like, oh, well, they're doing a thing. It reminds me of like Mr. Rogers episodes where Fred would get out and ride around in the back of a trash truck and be like, boys and girls, there's nothing wrong with being a trash person when you grow up. And some people took the wrong message from that. Like, he meant there was nothing wrong with your profession being, hey, I picked the trash up out of the alleys. He did not mean it was okay to be a trash person. But he did too. Like, he wasn't telling you to grow up to be a trash person. He was telling you to grow up to be a sanitation worker. But also, his message was, if you grow up to be a trash person, you're still a person. And I need to learn to respect that. Because I don't have a lot of patience for trash people. Not the guy that picks up my trash, but again, just people who are trash. And I need to do better with that. That's my... You know, we always set our New Year's resolutions at the beginning of the year, back in January. We shouldn't, though. Like, winter is dark and reminiscent of death and the end of things, right? Like, winter is when the world contemplates its own mortality. You got 4 hours of sunlight a day. That does not lead yourself to thinking about being renewed. It does not lend itself to thinking about the future and whether or not you have one. No, it's bleak and dark and nihilistic. That's winter. Winter is waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning being like, I should get up and be productive. But you look outside and you're like, fuck that. And then you go back to sleep. That's the whole of winter. We should not be contemplating things we can do to change our lives in the winter. because nothing we think about would be in the mindset of anything good. This is why when in places where there are no winters, everybody's happier, because they should actually, that's when you should. In those places, you can do it in the winter. But in some places, like, there isn't a winter. It's just nice and 70 degrees and sunny. And those people don't have that same dystopic mindset that we all have, where we're like, oh, this future sucks. Let's burn it to the ground. Because winter wants you to burn things anyway. It's cold. And when you burn cities to the ground, listening to the screams of the people in them and the screams of your leader dying in the flames of the city that you left behind, that's warming. It's a warm thought all around. Like, you think of politicians and people in authority just on fire. And yeah, they're dying, but they're also a source of heat. And when it's 10 below zero, you'll warm yourself by anything, including the crackling, greasy blue flame of whatever Republican politician rules the Missouri Senate. I didn't have to say Republicans. That was mean. If you're a Republican, you're probably a fine person, other Republicans. I don't know. Look in your own soul, man. Don't worry about what I think of you. Why are you listening? I mean, keep listening, obviously, but let's think about, I haven't been particularly nice to them. I don't know if Mr. Rogers would require me to be. I don't know. That's an interesting question. That's too bad we can't ask him. He's moved on to sainthood. But no, winter is for dark and depressing thoughts. It's not for thinking about a future and how you would change your life. So we should take the New Year's resolutions we make, and instead of New Year's resolutions, we should come up with like New July resolutions. Because then it's summer, right? Like, you don't want to do it in spring either. You don't want to make these life-altering decisions in winter when everything's dark and depressing and your serotonin receptors are like all misfiring, like teenage boys trying not to come in their first instance of having sex. Like, you don't want that. And you don't want spring either. You don't want spring because spring is about renewal. Spring is a metaphor, and you can't make life-changing decisions while you're living in the middle of a metaphor, because that's a false sense of optimism. Like, every spring, you see flowers growing in front of you, whether you're a piece of shit or not. You see flowers growing in front of you, whether the world's decided to beat you down or not. You see flowers growing in front of you, whether or not you're committing major embezzlement. There's that metaphor of the flower emerging, of life being renewed, of everything starting over. That metaphor can be applied to the wrong thing so easily that you shouldn't allow it to be used for anything. If something can so easily be applied to the wrong thing, it should be applied to nothing. That's a basic philosophy of life you should take with yourself. So you don't make life decisions in spring. That's all the optimism of a born-again Christian. Those, the types that found Jesus and want to tell every asshole they meet that they found the truth and the light and the way to go. And you're like, yeah, no, you met a girl and she took you to church and then said, hey, man, I'll do oral stuff to you if you go send your soul to Jesus. And you did, and she didn't do the oral stuff, because that's how they get you, man. They send the pretty boys and girls out to get the other pretty boys and girls, and they lure them in. And with the church, it's strictly boys and girls, because they don't do any of the thing where we're recognizing the fluidity of gender. No, they're strict in there, man. They're like, boys, girls, fucking, that's what they do. No, you can't do this in spring. In fact, you shouldn't be allowed to do anything life-altering in spring. There should be no one should be allowed to get a credit card in the spring. No one should be allowed to take out a mortgage in the spring, because you're too optimistic. You're too optimistic. When it's 65 degrees and sunny out and there's a nice breeze and somehow none of the pollen's ending up in your goddamn nose, you're too prone to think that you're better off than you are. You're too prone to think that you're more responsible than you are. You're like, yeah, man, I'm killing it, when really you're just as crushed under the weight of the world as you were back in December, but now there's daylight, so everything's different. No, you should not be allowed to do it. That optimism that makes you think, this time this credit card's only going to be used for business expenses. This time I'm going to live in a house that's not too big and there's not 98 rooms that are just going to all fill up with dust while I'm Miss Havershamming it up in the living room on a bare rug thinking about the time I got left at the altar in November. No, spring is not for life-changing decisions. Spring is just like winter. You should just get through it. Accept the baseline mood that the weather puts in you, right? Like, I don't know why I said puts in you like that. It sounds vaguely sexual, but if you're weather sexual, that's fine. You can have sex with weather. I don't care. But no, my autobiography is going to be called But No now too, apparently. Anyway, I go back and listen to this and I catch myself saying, but no. Anyway, it just shows me how tangential I get. And I'm sorry, I should stay on task. This, talking about a tangent, is in and of itself a tangent. The point is, in winter, you can't help what that does to your body and your soul and your mind. So you just live through it. Embrace it. Are you feeling nihilistic? All right, man. Get out there. Be nihilistic. Like, start reading some things that look into, like, the worldviews that winter gives. Maybe it's not nihilism. Maybe it's existentialism. Whatever. It's reflective. It's dark. It's Kierkegaard. It's Nietzsche. I say Nietzsche still. I don't care how other people say it. You should not just go around reading. Let's put an actual disclaimer here for a second. Don't just go around reading Nietzsche like the year round. There's a good test for whether or not you should have sex with someone, and the way you should know that you really shouldn't. They sit around reading Nietzsche for fun. That's a particular person. Like, if you're reading Nietzsche because you're like, I'm curious what he has to say, that's one thing. If you're the type of person reading Nietzsche because I find his worldview very helpful, no, fuck you. Get out. Go. Run. Get out of my face. No. Those people, assholes. But just reading it because it's winter, and this is the kind of stuff we read in the winter, that's acceptable. So some Kierkegaard, some Nietzsche. If you're into fiction, now is a good time to read all the depressing stuff that you shouldn't read in the summer. Get a copy of Room. Read that. I don't know. What else do you want to read? Do you want to start Infinite Jest? The winter's the time to do it. Because if you want a boring book about tennis and heroin, the best time to do it is when there's 12 inches of snow outside and you can't go anywhere else anyway and the internet's down because Charter Cable or whoever your cable company is in the region you live doesn't maintain their lines to withstand the weight of ice and snow building up on them. But they can hold like a dozen squirrels. That's weird to me. No, you just push through winter. You eat chili from a crock pot. You make queso dip and call it beer cheese soup. You do things like that. You drink hot cider with various amounts of alcohol or pills in it. I don't care. Whatever it takes to get you through. And then spring, you also just get through. You smile more. Just let it happen. Don't think about the fact that your smile is unearned. Don't think about the fact that your joy is basically stolen valor. Just get out there. Let the joy of the world move through you, whether you want it to or not. You ride the wave of spring. No, then summer hits, and summer is when you make real decisions. Because summer is life. Like, summer is a collection of days that are too cold, days that are too hot, and mild days somewhere in there too. Right? Like, yeah, it's warm. Sometimes it's hot. Sometimes it's 104 degrees. And you got air conditioning. We made air conditioning to conquer summer. Summer is a season that was conquered. Winter is a thing that's endured. Spring is a thing we just, experience. Summer is conquered. The heat can be defeated. And then what you do in that air conditioning is you sit and you plan your life for how you're going to conquer something as well as we've conquered summer. So every July, this was a long way to get back to the fact that we should make resolutions in July. So do it. Whatever you're thinking about changing in your life, change in July. Every July 1st, sit down with yourself and be like, all right, well, here's what I want to see. Here's what I want to put out in the world. Here's what I want to project. I think it's a good plan. I mean, people do Christmas in July, We should do New Year's resolutions in July. We call them summer resolutions, not New Year's, obviously. I know why we start our New Year's in January. Like, I know why it was decided. I just don't know why we do it. It's far enough in the future now. We could leave that behind. I always hate it because this is a legitimate gripe. Like, a lot of what I say is just like, this is on the top of my head, here it comes. But this is a legitimate gripe. I don't understand why the year has to. Like, I know why it does, historically speaking, why we've chosen this time. Cycles of the moon and all this seasons and stuff. But that's what bugs me, is that winter is split between 2 years. Like, I don't like that. I never liked the school year being split across 2 years either. That was always a problem to me. I feel like if we're going to bother having a calendar year, let's put the important shit happening within a single calendar year, right? Like, if we got 4 seasons, we don't need to restart our year in the middle of one of them. We could start winter, or we could start the new year on December 22nd. Isn't that the first day of winter? I think that's the first day of winter. We could start the new year on the first day of winter if we really want winter to be at the beginning of the year. Or we could start on the first day of spring and then carry your stupid rebirth metaphor into the obvious choice. Or we could just start it on June 22nd, which is like next week. Why not have New Year's on the first day of summer? Like the baller people we are. For one, it'd be really cool because all the pools would be open on New Year. If you think New Year celebrations in 3-degree weather with everybody bundled up in parkas in Times Square are interesting to watch on TV, what about New Year's Fort Lauderdale with everybody in butt floss and walking around with their nipples out saying "free the nip," all that stuff? Well, they could do that in Fort Lauderdale anyway for the actual New Year that we have, I guess. But what if they were doing that in Times Square? What if Times Square, it was 150 degrees, because that's where we're going, because climate change is real. I didn't mean to imply, like, the tone of my voice sounded kind of like I was mocking climate change. No, I was mocking people who mock climate change. Climate change is real. So eventually what we're going to get is it's going to be 150 degrees on June 22nd in New York City. So what if that was our New Year celebration? Imagine how scantily clad everybody would be, all the males, the females, the non-binary people, just all there, like half naked, banging each other out over a police barricade. Like, that would be a New Year's celebration to see. All we got to do is move it 6 months and 22 days into the future. And it makes more sense because a new year, a new season, a new summer. You don't have that false optimism of spring. You've got a real season like summer right there. If you start your New Year's, it's nothing lends itself to hedonism more than appropriate climate. And that's what New Year's is about. And if you want your rebirthing and death metaphor, you want the old year dying and baby new year like emerging. Everyone knows it's easier to give birth in the summer than it is in the winter anyway. Your body is warmer, it spreads open easier. So why wouldn't the new year baby just pop out a little bit quicker if he or she or they were born on the first day of summer? And then you make your resolutions. And it makes more sense. It makes more sense. Like, I don't know, if your resolutions, I want to lose weight. Well, summer's when most people do that anyway, biologically. Like, in winter, there's a piece of stupidity for you, funded by the diet periodical complex that runs the grocery checkout lane. You do New Year's on January 1st, the beginning of winter, whenever. It's cold. It's fucking cold. Anyway, you do your New Year's resolution in there, and the most common resolution is, I'm going to lose weight. The human body is genetically predisposed. It wasn't predisposed. Well, some people are predisposed. They're going to be in court next week. They got to give their statement. They don't know why little Junior's being held on charges, but they got to talk about the time that him and the cat went out into the woods and only he came back. No, you're making your decisions about, like, I should lose weight or stuff in the middle of a time when your body is predisposed to holding on to every calorie, every pound it can, because 10,000, 15,000 years ago, your ancestors used to freeze to death while walking across the plains trying to not have ice form on their balls. No. Make your resolution to lose weight at a time when your body's already like saying, oh, it's warm. We should start shedding this so we could stay cooler in the sun while we lounge on rocks in the Serengeti. I'm reading Sapiens, a history of the human race right now. So I'm basically an anthropology expert. So just be prepared for that. That's not going away. So summer resolutions, make them. I want to know what they are. I don't know. Maybe it's go back to school, get that degree finally, finish it off. Let someone know you love them if they want to be told. Don't tell strangers you love them. We've talked about that. I know you were raised on a diet of 80s movies where all you had to do was show up on some chick's driveway holding a boombox, and 10 years later you guys were having semi-okay sex while kids ran around the house downstairs, and you were trying to not make too much noise because you don't want to have that talk with the kids yet. They don't need to know about that. Let them maintain a little bit of innocence. But they already know mom owns handcuffs, and that's kind of weird, and she's not a cop. Why does she own those? And you're like, well, sometimes for Halloween, mom likes to be the officer and I like to be the criminal. And they're like, for what? And you're like, I said too much. No, I know the 80s taught us that. That's what those movies raised you to do. But don't go out telling people you love them if they don't know you love them already. They don't want to know. The barista at Starbucks does not need you to stand there and profess your dying love. Do you know what would happen if you grabbed a boombox and stood in the middle of a Starbucks holding it over your head, trying to proclaim, I can't talk today, trying to proclaim your love for the 5'1" goddess of coffee beans that has served you caffeine every day? You'll get shot 4 times in the chest. And you deserve it. You're holding up the line. I think there's a lot of reasons not to kill people, so you shouldn't. Right? Like mass shootings are terrible. There was an attempted mass shooting just this week, but the guy was an idiot, so they killed him first, which go police. Yeah. Usually I'm like, cops killed somebody. Fuckers, man. They're just out there abusing their power. This one they got right, which isn't saying they're good at their job. If you kill every criminal person or every person accused of crime, not even a criminal because there's no trial or jury yet, so we don't know. But if you kill every individual you come into contact with, eventually you're going to kill an actual criminal. So good job, Dallas Police Department, on this one. Actually, Dallas Police Department, I think, is supposedly one of the more progressive police departments in the country because they weren't not too long ago. And then their police chief was like, let's fix that. I could be making all that up. I don't remember. Whatever. Fuck the police. Or not. I mean, if you're a cop, you're probably a good person. Maybe. Probably not, though. I mean, let's realistically speaking. Here's how you tell. If you're a cop and you want to know if you're a good person or not, do you own a disposable gun? If the answer is yes, not a good person. If the answer is no, jury's still out. You might be. I don't know. I have cop friends. They're all good people because I'm not friends with bad. That's not true. I am friends with bad people too because I like interesting people. So you can't just say, well, Chris, we're friends. I must be one of the good ones. Not necessarily. You could have sold me drugs. So we might be friends for that. You could just be interesting. You could have good stories. I mean, I'm going to let a lot slide if you got good stories. For one, I don't care if you're a good person because most of the ways you would be a bad person don't affect me. So, yeah. So if your resolution is I'm going to proclaim my love for the Starbucks barista, don't. You hold up my line, I'm going to call a cop to shoot you. And I'm going to call a cop to do it because they're the only ones who can get away with it. Probably. I don't know. It's St. Louis. It's not like historically speaking. We have a good track record in that. Chris, you're getting vaguely political right now. I'm always vaguely political. That's my politics. Chris, what are your politics? Vague. It borders between what's funny and what I want to burn the world down on. There's no in between. Those are my 2 modes. My 2 modes are none of this matters. It's all bullshit. Let's just laugh. And the other mode is, why don't people take up machetes and storm the halls of power, cut the heads off your leaders, drag their corpses out into the road, burn them with gasoline, and shit on the ashes? I don't know. Somebody tried to call me on that, like, Chris, do you think in a revolution like that you would do well? No. I'm being dragged out in the street and murdered too. But you know what? I'm at peace with that because I had a good run. Like, don't get me wrong, I hope the revolution doesn't happen because I would like to die of old age sitting in my house playing a Nintendo Switch, getting a blowjob from the neighbor while everybody's out mowing my lawn, is like happy they're doing it. And what other rich people shit can I do? And there's a Maserati parked in the driveway while a pot of chicken boils in the kitchen. Did I hit all the things? I don't know. It was a combination of Eisenhower and Scarface there. I forgot which dream was the real one. No, I would like to die that way, like in the lap of luxury, in the full ensconcement, that's probably not a word, of my privilege, just comforting me, saying, you did your best. You're not as terrible as everyone else. Die with peace. I would love that. But if the people of the world decide to lose their shackles, rise up, and drag the ruling class out into the streets, hey, man, what am I going to do? Argue? I don't know. Take a few with me just because you should never go down without a fight, even if you're going down on the wrong side of a cause. And by going down, I mean dying, not like oral sex. You could go down with a fight if that's your kink, no shame. But there's maybe I'll die in that revolution, but you should do it. Sorry, I sniffled there. It's almost summer. Still got allergies. So if your resolution is to lose weight in the summer, that makes sense too. Because all the exercise programs you want to do outside, you burn more calories when it's hot. Also, you could die of heat exhaustion while you're exercising. And nothing makes you lose weight more than dying. Like, you lose weight exponentially faster if you're dead. It's amazing. Like, you could watch it. You could go to the body farm in Virginia. That's where they like put dead bodies in different poses and just leave them in the elements to watch them decay and record what happens. And it helps forensic pathologists learn the stages of decay and helps them identify, like, just by sight, how long someone's been dead. But you could go out there and you could just watch as like fat and skin and muscle and viscera all just melt right off the skeleton. And a 300-pound man can become an 85-pound skeleton in just mere weeks. You can't do that any other time of year if you're alive. So make your weight loss resolution in July too. Then get out there, run 5 miles in the summer heat, do a bunch of crunches underneath the beating sun that's getting closer every year. Go, don't put on sunscreen as you do your sit-ups on a beach and then feel the sunburn just fry the skin off. That's weight loss. It just makes more sense. If your resolution is to connect more with your family, that's easier to do in the summer because you have barbecues and family reunions and pool parties and funerals. Lots of funerals for all the people whose resolution was to lose weight and they all died. Then the families get together. And then you could like bang out one with your cousin in the closet of a funeral home. Who doesn't want to do that? Summer's just a better season to start the year on. And I'm sticking to that. That is 100% what I'm sticking to as my new philosophy. In the new regime, when the new laws come down, that's what we'll do. The year will end on June 21st and begin on June 22nd. That's just, get ready. Get ready for a new calendar. The Julian calendar is gone. It's dead. The Syrian calendar, we can't call it that. That's bad. Like, it looks good on paper, but when you say it out loud, it sounds, I'm going to be on a list. Like, there is nothing this country wants less than to be on the same calendar as Syria, I guess. I don't know. It's not that bad of a place. I mean, there's lots of terrorism and dying. Most of the dying is from stuff we drop on them, so that's within our control. The Christian downtown. There we go. We'll call it that because it sounds almost like you're saying the Christian, and that sneaks in the fundies and gets them on our side. I just want to change the calendar, not the world. That's all I want. That's all I want. Do I sound angry today? I shouldn't be. I'm tired. I complained about this last year, so I feel weird complaining about it now. But I don't like when I wake up at 5:30 in the morning and it's full daylight outside. It makes me cranky. The thing is, if I'm going to get up at 5:30 in the morning, I need to see the sunrise. I need to watch the sunrise over the hills. Like that, I don't live anywhere where there are hills. Like, I mean, there's the hill. That's an area of town. But metaphorical hills, the tops of buildings, the arch, almost said the World Trade Center. No, well, we have one. That's the thing. We have like a downtown here in St. Louis with its own World Trade Center. It's not like a big one, and it's still there. But like the cityscape, that's the word I'm looking for. I need to see that happen because that makes me feel good about getting up so early in the day beginning. When the sun's already out full blast at 5:30, I just feel like I woke up late. And I didn't. I didn't wake up late. I woke up early. Well, early-ish. I was still late getting. I don't know how I was late getting here. I left the house with so much goddamn time. I didn't stop by Starbucks. Like, I learned that trick. I'll quickly pull through Starbucks. And the Starbucks on my way to the studio to record this is like the worst designed piece of shit building. I love it. I go there because they make my coffee. But it is terrible. For one, when they wanted to build this Starbucks, it's the South Grand Starbucks in St. Louis. If you're visiting, go check it out. You'll see what I mean in this design. When they wanted this building there, they gave it its own sales tax district. So it has a different tax rate than every other building around it. It's stupid. I mean, I know why they do it because the city poorly uses tax increment financing and other types of incentive programs to convince people to build where they would build anyway because there's a commerce base waiting. But no, we have to give away future tax revenues because the city's so goddamn rich. They don't need to collect money anyway. Audit the Cardinals. God damn it, the Cardinals owe us so much sales tax and entertainment tax that no one's just auditing and checking. That's not the point. But, okay. Calm, center, summer voice. All right. But the building itself is designed with the drive-through exits onto one of the busiest thoroughfares in the city. So it backs up because you can't always pull out because, for one, St. Louis does not believe in things like right-of-ways, zipper merges, letting people out of drive-throughs on busy streets when you could just block them and make sure you get through the light first. We're asshole drivers. We may have won the Stanley Cup, but we still drive like a bunch of teenagers who are still high on meth. But so that backs up, which means it backs up through the line. And then the entrance for the drive-through comes in off of a street that backs up onto that same main thoroughfare. So what you get are people who are trying to make a right onto that street and then turn into the drive-through. They back up. And like sometimes there is a half mile of traffic that's blocked from people trying to get through the drive-through of this one Starbucks. And it's a beautiful thing to see, but I'm not making the mistake of getting in that line again whenever I have to be somewhere. So I didn't do that. I didn't get stuck behind school buses. That's the beautiful thing. We should definitely start the new year in the summer for the plain and simple fact there are hardly any goddamn school buses. I did not realize this, but a few episodes ago, I told you that it's okay to plow your car into the side of a school bus if it's empty. I forgot I did that. I was sitting at home and my wife came home from work and she's like, "Did you know you told people it's okay to just smash your car into school buses?" I'm like, I said that? I don't usually advocate for like tons of dead kids. That's not good. And she's like, "Oh no, you said it's because there'd hardly be any kids on them this time of year." It's like, well, that makes sense. So, but you don't have to smash your car into school buses this time of year because there are hardly any. They're not in the ways anymore. In the ways and means. They're not there anymore. They're just gone. They were all raptured, I guess. So I didn't get stuck behind school buses who just put their stop signs out like assholes, thinking I shouldn't get where I want to get because some 6-year-old needs to get on and go learn about the fake history that was approved by our corporate masters. Whew. I am turning into QAnon. I don't like QAnon. So I need to dial that back probably. I don't know, maybe more coffee in the morning. What is making me paranoid about our government and our society? It's clearly caffeine. What I don't, yeah, but I don't understand how I got here late. Like, the public bus, the metro bus, I did get stuck behind it for a minute, but only a minute. And while I was behind it, I wasn't even mad I was behind it because there's still the one that goes down South Grand here is still mystifying to me because it's two buses like that they cut and then glued together with a little like service nipple between them. Nipple's the wrong word. Coupler. That's nipple and coupler are two different words. You shouldn't get those wrong. Like a docking seal, basically, and it holds it together. Like, and it's cool. Like, you just watch that. So I drove behind that for a sec. That's when I realized I was tired. I was like, that bus is not as cool as I think it is right now. I should go back to sleep. So maybe I was just driving extra slow this morning. I don't know. Like, I had plenty of time. Who knows? Well, the sun was up, so that probably made me drive slower because I don't have any sunglasses in my car right now. I drove to Chicago over the weekend. I was featuring at Zany's up there in St. Charles, Illinois. So I said Chicago, but I didn't actually make it into Chicago because I didn't know the geography of the area, and I was like an hour the opposite direction of Chicago, which is not to say I was an hour closer to St. Louis. It was the exact same amount of time as it was driving to Chicago, but I was in West Chicago, which is a misnomer. The area where St. Charles is calls itself West Chicago. I think what happened is 150 years ago, this place was called West of Chicago. And then some marketing genius was like, hey guys, if we remove the of, more people are going to think they're actually coming to Chicago. But the club up there's fun. It's a nice old school comedy club. It's in this corporate resort kind of thing. Like if you're in Missouri, you know what Tantara is, which was just like a place where you went to do horseback riding and parasailing on a lake and get massages. And it was like being on a cruise ship without being on a cruise. This place is like that, but with like no horseback riding or lake. It's golf and little events. There's a theater, kind of like Silver Dollar City, but no one dresses on purpose in period clothes. Some people do, but they're just outdated because they're old. But I had a fun time featuring up there with my friend Jim Flanagan. He was the MC, and Jeff Arcuri was the headliner. We had 4 shows, 3 of which were really good. The late night Saturday show, man, that crowd was so hostile. It was great. I loved it. I very rarely bomb anymore. Like I'm not bragging. I think any comic who's been doing this for a minute doesn't bomb that often. Like you can always salvage at least a mediocre like set where half the crowd would be like, hey man, you were funny, and the other crowd was like, fuck you. Like you should usually be able to do that. So I can usually salvage that no matter who the crowd is. I'm likable. I talk about drinking and sex and partying and stuff, and everybody's on board with that to some extent, even your grandma. Octogenarians usually love me. Like, I have made tables full of 80-year-old women, like, laugh about the prospect of ending up in an orgy at 4 o'clock in the morning without knowing they were at an orgy. So, like, I'm just very self-aware. I can usually eke out a pretty mediocre response if I have to. Not that night, though. Like the late shows at every comedy club are the night. For one, it's usually the last show of the weekend. So you're tired, you've been doing all your stuff, but also the crowd shows up already drunk. And sometimes the crowd, depending on what else is going on, isn't a crowd. It's like a right amount of people to host a dinner party at your house. Like there are maybe 25 people there late night. And by late, in St. Charles, Illinois, by the way, it's late as 10 o'clock. So, no, it's Father's Day weekend. It was a Saturday before Father's Day. They showed up drunk and hostile already. And I watched them. Like, Jim's funny. Jim Flanagan is a comic in Chicago who's been around. He headlines, and he's currently, like, the MC in residence for the month at Zany's, which is a thing they do to let like headliners work out new material. do that. So he knows how to handle a crowd. He knows how to write a joke. He has material that is objectively funny that crowds and crowds of people have laughed at. And I knew during his set, the way this crowd was being, I was not going to have a great time because they were just being complete assholes to him. But he handled it well. And I go up in the middle. And the middle's a weird spot because if you're MC on a show and the crowd's being a bunch of assholes, you're allowed to talk to them a little bit, right? Like you could be like, hey guys, remember, we're not going to do this during the next two comics. But you can also, like, if they call out, you can respond. In the middle, you never know how to handle it because some headliners, like, they do crowd work and they don't want you doing it to, like, take their thunder away. And then some headliners don't do any crowd work and they don't want you to create the expectation that the crowd gets to talk to the comic. So in the middle, you kind of just float the line of sometimes you got to acknowledge what's going on without acknowledging what's going on, right? So I kept trying to figure out that balancing act. And then, like, I had gotten them kind of on my side with some material. Like, I recorded the set, and it wasn't as bad as I thought at the beginning. And then a fire alarm goes off. A goddamn fire. And I don't mean, like, a little fire alarm that made a sound and then went off. I mean, the fire alarm went off for the next minute and a half. And I was raised in a world where when the fire alarm goes off, you look up and you leave a building. And it's never had one go off on stage on me before. Like, I've had some weird shit happen while I've been on stage, but never a fire alarm. So I was like, I don't know if everybody should get up and evacuate. You're people who don't have to, really, in my book. Like, if this building's on fire, I'll leave. You guys stay. Like, we'll make this audience better for someone next week. I didn't say that. That would have been then I would have understood why they were no longer on my side. But I just lost my train of thought, and they lost all focus. So we were done. Like, there was a point where I told a joke that I knew was legitimately not funny. And when they groaned, I was like, yeah, I know that joke's not funny. That's why I told it, to give you a reason not to laugh. It was like, it was great. I loved it. Like, not having that happen so often and being the type of person who loves a train wreck anyway, when you're in the middle of that train wreck, it's amazing. Like, I hated it at the first. When I got off stage, I was emotionally wiped, and I just wanted to, like, stab one dude in the back of the head because I watched him talk through the headliner's set until security made him leave. And I was like, we can't just, like, X-Files this guy right at the base of his neck with an ice pick. But, yeah, so we all made it through, and I hated it. And then I went up to my room. I may or may not have self-medicated, and then was just like, oh man, that was so much fun. It's like summer camp. Summer camp's a miserable experience for everyone, but you remember it fondly when it's over. That's what that show was like. It was like summer camp if instead of camp counselors, you had 25 drunk adults who felt entitled to be the center of attention at a show where they paid for a ticket, where someone else was legitimately supposed to be the center of attention. So exactly like summer camp, because there was alcohol involved. Not for me. What else? Oh, yeah, I was talking about that because I don't have sunglasses in my car. I don't know what happened to the 9 pairs of sunglasses I had in my car, but I made that whole drive up to Illinois without sunglasses. And you have to drive east to get to Chicago from St. Louis. That is a north and east drive, which means if you leave at the right time of day, you're driving into the sun without sunglasses. And you're probably like, Chris, there's 900 truck stops between St. Louis and Chicago. Why did you not pull over and buy sunglasses? Because I don't have truck stop sunglass money. When was the last time you bought sunglasses from a truck stop? They know why you're buying sunglasses from a truck stop. They're 4 times as expensive as they are anywhere else. No. Instead, I wanted the 3 free pair of Planned Parenthood sunglasses that were in there last week. The 1 pair of Johnny Londoff Chevrolet, not a sponsor, sunglasses that were in my car last week. 2 pairs of aviators that someone just left on a photo shoot and I stole. I want those. I don't know where they all went. Who went through? I'm thinking the people at Waterway. All those kids that clean my car, not a sponsor. All those kids who clean my car might have free sunglasses. You know, I'll say this and this will be it. I just realized what time it is. It's getting there. They stole mushrooms from me once, so I'm pretty sure they'll steal sunglasses. I pulled in. I thought I had my drugs hidden in my car. This was like way far enough ago to where the statute of limitations for owning mushrooms or buying mushrooms is expired. Whatever year that would be, that's when this was. But I pulled in. I thought I had the drugs hidden in my car. I got a car wash. I drove off. And the next day I went looking for those mushrooms. They were nowhere. They were gone. So some kid's little first hallucinogen experience was at my expense. And I tipped them for cleaning my car, which means I double tipped, which made me angry. So when I took my car back 2 months later because a friend had thrown up in it and I lied and said it was spoiled milk, I did not feel guilty, even though I apparently should have, because I exposed someone to biological waste without them knowing. But I knew my friend was healthy. It was just alcoholic puke, which is way more sanitary than normal puke. That's a weird thing to end the show on, but whatever. We had a good time. Did you have a good time? I think we had a good time. We'll do it again. Yeah. Where am I coming up? Just this week. There's the event's not up anymore because I had to take it down because I'm swapping out the comics and I didn't want to leave up the event with the wrong information. Tomorrow, when is it? Thursday. Whatever day of the week that is for you. Thursday, the 19th, I'm at Southtown Pub. I'll be headlining that show. I think that's Thursday the 18th. Thursday the 20th. Thank you, Chris Gardner, who's doing the sound for me. Let me know that I need to buy a calendar. Thursday the 20th, I'm at Southtown Pub in St. Louis City. June 20th, not July 20th. June 20th. South St. Louis City. I'll be headlining that show. Larry Green is on the show. Meredith Hopping is on the show. And Tommy Mosslander is hosting it. I didn't choose him. I don't know. No, I like Tommy. He's a good kid. So come out anyway, even if you don't like Tommy. No, he's fun. Why do I keep doing this? He's not even going to listen, so I could say whatever I want to him, like a little fucker. But no, it's a fun show. Come out. I'll be headlining that. Friday is Impolite Company. It was supposed to be my friend Johnny Azari in from out of town. He had a conflict that came up, so Tina D-Ball is going to headline. So a little change, but Tina and Johnny are totally not the same comic, but both really good and about the same level of content warning I would give you for either one of them. So I don't feel like you're missing out. I'll be on that show a little bit. I'm not booking myself a lot. I got a couple guest spots with some newer comics. I'm giving it to them. So that'll be fun. And then, what the hell? It's a little in the future, but I'll still give it out. The 29th, I'm headlining the Garage Show at Helium. Come out. While there's a big show in the main showroom, we'll be in the garage, like with our little indie selves, just doing our thing. It'll be an hour of weirdness. I'm working on my hour. There's some new stuff. There's some old stuff. You'll like it. It's fun. And then in July 1st, I'm at the Funny Bone for the Funny Bones annual comedy competition. July 2nd, I'm at Helium for Helium's annual comedy competition. And then after that, I got some stuff, but that's far enough in the future you don't need to know about. If you want tickets to any of those shows, you can just message me on Facebook or email me at No, that's not my email address. Hold on. I'll just give it all to you, okay? It's impolitestl@gmail.com. There you go. impolitestl@gmail.com. And on that note, follow us on social media. Impolite STL on Twitter. Impolite STL on Facebook. ImpoliteCompany.com, where you probably downloaded this episode, and you can download all the other episodes. If you're on Spotify, hey, that's where all the stuff that you can't get on Spotify is, because we don't have 2 years worth of shows up on Spotify anymore. But they're still all sitting out there on the website for you to go to. So go click, check out our sponsors, and I don't know. Like, I've been on the road for a couple weeks. I did a lot of writing. I did not come up with a catchphrase, and I'm probably never gonna. So hashtag no gods, no masters. I'll catch you on the other side. Peace out.